Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Why I Love Flagler County, your local podcast spotlighting local businesses, local residents on why they like being in Flagler County. So today I'm super honored to have my guest, Amanda Redwine, with me today. Thank you so much for coming on, Amanda.
Oh my gosh, it's an honor to be here.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, to give everyone just a little bit of background on Amanda, we had met, I want to say almost a month ago at this point. I feel like I've
I
been
think
going.
so.
That's crazy. We met at the local BNI of Palm Coast, and Amanda just, I think Amanda is also, you're also very new to BNI, but
I am.
your energy is so infectious that I figured that you'd been there for at least a good dozen years.
No, maybe a dozen days by the time I met you.
I think so. I think you're like very new. I think you're like basically just been inducted is what I
Yes, but
remember.
thankfully now another meeting has gone by and they've inducted newer people than me.
Yes. Yes. So you're off the hook. You're no longer
Exactly.
the new person. You're basically a veteran, right?
Thank you, right? As long as you're not the new kid, you're okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd love for you to share just a little bit about what you do, because I think you can put it into better terms than I can. But you do some
Sure.
really amazing work for other people, and you always really give great, amazing 30-second commercials when you go for them. I'm always laughing.
That's really honor. I appreciate that. I never feel that way, but
Oh,
there you go.
it's
Um, so my business is congruence counseling and mediation. I'm in process of training to become a circuit court mediator. And I'm doing that primarily because I was an accountant for 20 years. I did corporate finance, worked for Ford and Alcoa, huge companies. And it was never the math that did me wrong. It was the people. It
mm,
was finding fraud, finding and as the finance person, you're the conscience of the organization. And being a woman and the conscience got me a reputation for being difficult. So it
mm,
turns out I am actually a little bit difficult. So the other half of this story is that when my son was 13, he had a lot of struggles. And over a couple of months, we ended up finding a therapeutic boarding school, which I had no idea even existed. And it was out in Heber City, Utah. And I would travel out there about every 6 weeks to see him. And they would have these parent seminars. And I would, again, when I wasn't the new kid anymore, these new parents would come in and they just would have this look of trauma on their faces because this particular school is for young men with what used to be called Asperger's. On the autism spectrum. And you don't get to the point where you do outplacement with your child unless
mhm.
you have been through some stuff.
Right.
Everybody in that room had either called the police or an ambulance on their child at least once. So, what I realized was the school's focus was on the boys. Nobody was helping the parents.
Mhm.
And I needed to heal from that experience. So, on a lark, I started a graduate degree in counseling and that was 2017, and here we are.
Wow, that's really amazing. I remember you had shared a little bit about that. And actually, from that experience, what I remember is you wrote a book. Am I right?
I did. I wrote a book called Skunk Nugget Parenting. My sister always likes to say, we love them skunky. And so when I would get really enraged talking about our boys, like if I was having a parent support group or something, I had to clean up my language. So I came up with Skunk Nugget because that was the most PC way I could describe the way that teenagers behave.
Mm. I
And
mean,
it turns
that's
out I love the teenagers. I
right.
really do. But when they're your teenager, it can be a little bit maddening.
It can. It can. I have a teenage brother right now, so I can understand.
Just remember his brain is only like a third cooked.
Right. Yeah,
Give him
it's
some
really
grace. He will turn into a legit adult at some point,
something.
but not soon enough.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, so that's awesome that you're able to write that book. And for you haven't been in business like long is what I remember,
No,
right?
I was working in private practice in Illinois before we moved here. We moved in September of 23. And
Wow.
I'll tell you that story in just a second about how we came to be here.
Yes.
But I worked in someone else's practice there. And
Gotcha.
so I couldn't open my practice in Florida until I was a resident of Florida. So that's why my practice here only opened in November.
Wow. Yeah, I'd love for you to tell a story on what brought you from Illinois to Palm Coast.
Absolutely. I feel like I knew a lot about Palm Coast because I have been married to my wife, Anne, for not long enough, is the short answer. I want to say we're coming up on our 15th anniversary this year.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you. Thank you. Her parents live here in the
Mm.
F section. And so I visited here many times. Um, 2 years ago, when my mother was dying, my wife and I went to California and stayed there for 5 months to help her die. And whew, it was a tough experience. However, I left there with zero regrets because I lived my truth, right? Um, and so, and during that time, my wife showed up for me in a way that no one ever has. And I thought, oh, and I knew from the time I met her that she would want to help her parents as they age. Um, so it wasn't a surprise to me. So we've
Right.
always been kind of working towards this. So the opportunity came to build a house here, and here we are. Um, so it feels like we're finally here. And let me just tell you, I did not miss shoveling snow one bit, as it turns out. I
No.
can see it on TV. It's
Right.
fine.
Yeah, you have those memories, you have the past, because I'm also from the north, I'm from Michigan, and it's a thing of the
Yes.
past, it's those things, it's those experiences you have, and then you come down, and it's like one of the first things you do not miss. It's like
Yes.
the
Now
main.
ask me again in July or August. I might not be so positive.
Honestly, I will say, okay, as a northerner who came down south, the summers really aren't that. It depends on what you like to do. Like my family, we're not huge outdoorsy people, so we just
Mm-hmm.
kind of stay in during the like peak times, and then
Mm-hmm.
towards the sunset we'll go to the beach and we'll relax there, and it's nice and
Nice.
windy down there. So it that's how we manage it and we're fine, but
Yeah.
it is an adjustment. So I will say that, but it
It's
hasn't
all in your
been
perspective.
yeah, it hasn't been as bad for us, thankfully.
I mean,
But
those that week in January in the Midwest where it's doesn't crack zero.
right,
I'm never gonna miss that.
right. Or when it feels like warm, when it's at like 30 degrees, and you're like, oh my gosh,
Yes,
it's so hot today.
you're ready to go out in shorts. I didn't even put a coat on until 17.
Oh
Now
God.
south of 17, I get a little bit prickly.
Yeah, I would imagine. Um, but I also really love that you were sharing about, with your mom and helping her. Because that had happened to my family. My grandma in Michigan, we lived with her. I lived with her my whole life, and then right before my 18th birthday, she had passed. But leading up to those moments, we had taken care of her for so long, and it's a lot of work. But like you said, it's one of those things where you don't have regrets because you were able to be with those people that you love during those moments, and then not even just be with them but support them, knowing
Yes.
that you were doing something to try and ease them at least for a little bit. So I really appreciate that you shared that. It's really
Yeah,
powerful.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm a childbirth doula also.
Oh,
I'm not actively practicing, but
right.
I've been at 31 births. And it's
Wow.
interesting to me, death is very similar to birth.
Is it?
It's a journey for a family.
Mm,
And they're never the same on the other side of it.
right.
And so for me, the idea of supporting that and also helping, I became a passionate advocate of palliative care because it's so important to me that people who are dying get the information about how serious their conditions are and then are able to make choices that suit them. If my mother had wanted to be high as a kite the whole 5 months, sign me up. It was
Right.
California also, so those things
Right.
are legal there, but it's not up to me to decide when she had had enough chemo.
Right.
right? And the problem with our medical system is that we'll treat you till you die. And so it just was a real journey for me. So I honor that part of my life. I learned a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really glad it taught me a lot too, going through that thing with my grandma. Because to be honest, she was like 90 something, but like she was almost 90 is what I remember. I don't remember her exact age.
It's okay. It's okay.
But it was so crazy. Her death for some reason snuck up on us because we thought she was very strong. She was very stubborn, as a lot of old people are. We're like, I don't need help. I don't need to do this. But it's like, no, you need help if you want to push. She was like rearranging all of her furniture.
I love it. I
And
love it.
so it was kind of time in the sense of, okay, she had lived a long life, but I mean, I was completely shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
thought you were gonna be here for like 5 more years.
And you're never going to be ready.
Right,
That's the other piece, right? Loss strikes all of us, and we walk around trying to protect ourselves. And the truth is, everybody around us, including us, is on a limited time.
right.
And so I heard recently somebody saying, okay, if you had an hour left to live and you knew that, what would you do? And this person was talking about that they would light a cigarette because they'd quit smoking. And I thought,
Uh,
you know what? Mad respect. But the
right,
issue is that we don't know most times.
pretty
And so,
much.
are you living, and this has to do with my work, is are you living your truth? Are you living in a way that is congruent? That's how I got the name for my business, with who you are. And when you tune into that energy, nothing can stop you. Absolutely nothing. The problem is that we live in a society that squashes that
Uh,
at every turn.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a very conformist way that people want you to live.
Yeah.
And
Let me give
it's
you an example.
mhm,
Do you prefer cats or dogs?
I prefer cats.
Okay. So for the next 15 seconds, I would like for you to say to yourself silently in your head and just repeat it over and over again. Spoiler alert, I know it's not true. You're going to say, I hate kittens. On your marks, get set, go. Okay, stop. Don't tell me, but check in with your body. Check in with your belly button, and your chest, and your jaw, and your what the heck lines, which you don't have yet because you're just a baby. Okay, you got a mental picture of what that felt like?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Next 10 seconds, I'd like you to say, I love kittens. On your marks, get set, go. Okay, stop. Check in with your body. How is it different?
It was really fidgety the first time for personally. I was like constantly like flinching almost.
Yeah, it's kind of an icky feeling because
Right.
that's not your truth. And nobody can tell you whether or not to like kittens. Right? It's just that is your truth. I don't eat anchovies, right? I don't like tuna from the can. I prefer puppies. Once you can kind of sit with what's true for you, and that's the energy that I'm talking about. And no
Mm-hmm.
matter how many times I do this, when I get to the what is my truth, all of a sudden I feel like I can breathe.
Right.
And I don't realize how much I'm when I'm not living my truth, how just shrunken I feel.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of my work is sitting with people and just loving up on them and giving them a safe space to explore where
Mm-hmm.
are their truths.
Mm-hmm.
No judgment one way or the other. I don't, it doesn't take my birthday for you to like kittens. It just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't.
Right.
And so I don't have to agree with you to see you and hear you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really powerful to have that other person with you helping you through that journey because sometimes we get so in ourselves and our own thoughts lost there, where we think, is this actually the truth, or is this kind of what I've been conditioned to think? Is it like, where does this all come from? Where is it leading to? And I think that's a really big part of having that, like second opinion with you, helping you go through the exercise. Like, okay, well, like I can definitely sense the energy is different. So you have to tell me where that energy is different. What is going
Mhm.
on here? And
Right.
then walk me
Right.
through it. So I think it's amazing what you do, and I'm so glad that you're here in Palm Coast helping people locally with that.
Thank you. Thank you. One thing I'm particularly excited about in February is I'm going to be leading a marriage seminar based on John Gottman's book, The Seven Principles to Making Marriage Work.
Hmm.
And I'm so excited about it because it's such common sense stuff. It,
Right.
it's it's the puppy kind of stuff, right?
Right.
It's just taking your communication and tweaking it ever so slightly, and it makes all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been a huge part of what my dad would teach me as a kid. It's like being very aware of your communication style, other people's communication style, and how do you meet someone halfway without, completely changing one another. So I think that's really
Absolutely.
awesome. So I would love for you to give just a really quick detail. So like where can people find more information on the marriage counseling, on you, and just maybe contact you if they'd be interested in working
Absolutely.
with you.
My website is amandaredwine.com, like a country music star, except I'm completely tone deaf. So
It's okay.
87325, which also spells 862 get real. The universe
Awesome.
just gave that to me, so I can't ever
Yes.
change it.
Yeah, you just have to. That's so
Right?
funny. Yeah, it's so funny now that you come to Palm Coast. Usually when you live somewhere, most people have the same area codes, but so much has changed in Palm Coast, like pretty much you I think it's like 50-50. It's like some are the 386 and most people are not. Like I'm
Are
not.
imported. Yeah, so
Right.
you
We're
just have to
transplants. What can I say?
let it go. You could no longer infer anything from someone's area code.
You could get an area code from like I think my dad got a code from Alabama yesterday. I'm like, who in Alabama? And he's like, oh, I'm from Palm Coast. I'm like, oh, okay.
Are you lost?
Oh, that's so funny. But awesome. So I will make sure I leave the links to that and the information in the description so people can click that just a little bit easier. So Amanda, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really
It was my
appreciate it.
pleasure. I'm
And I
really looking forward to our continuing relationship. I think you are
yes.
a very special young lady, and I think you're going to do big things.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Well, it was such an honor to have you on, and I just had a blast going through this conversation. So thank you so much again, and
Of
I will
course.
see you all next time.